Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Early Edge. It's going to be a show packed full of experts and picks. But before we move forward, we got to take a quick look back. Let's look back at what we did yesterday. The recap screen, we're bringing it back here. Only 2 of 6 here. Keep in mind, we have 4+ money plays here, or I should say 4+ money plays. Griffin Carroll came in with a plus 240, plus 199. Those didn't come in. But again, a lot of plus money here. Maybe you didn't put a full unit on it. Not our best day for sure. Mike McClure with that nice first half bet. He really crushed that, picked me up on the Steelers -6. Again, let's look forward. And before we bring in the stars of the show, let's look at what we have later today at 4 p.m. Don't forget, we've got our Week 14 player props today at 4 p.m. again. And as you know, as always, the odds are powered by none other than BetMGM. They have been absolutely awesome to us. They will continue to be awesome. And we've got another promo to let you guys know about in a few minutes. I've talked enough. Let's bring in the stars of the show. Now, I will mention right off the bat, because people I know, they're always looking for Chip Patterson on a Friday. He'll be back next week. He's away. We'll have Big Pick Energy. We'll have Chip Patterson. But what did I do? I stocked the crew with some of the best experts at SportsLine, if not the best experts. We've got Proppy, we've got the Maestro, we've got Buckets, and we've got Mike McClure. And Mike, let me just kick it to you real quick. We're on right now, but at 11 o'clock, we're on for Fantasy Football Today, DFS. We're going to be spending the whole morning together. How you feeling today, buddy?
Whole morning. Feeling great, honestly. Love that game we had last night. Some of my favorite things about betting first halves is you don't have to watch the second half anymore if you don't want to, if those games aren't great. But of course, I couldn't resist it. Like any NFL game, I have to sit there and watch the entire thing. So it was great. Feeling good. Looking forward to that DFS podcast with you as well. I encourage a lot of you to stop by because it's a nice little preview to some of the prop shows that Alex does. Yes. You might find some crossover. So there's a lot of correlation between DFS and prop markets.
There is a ton of crossover on that. In fact, when I do the DFS breakdowns to prepare for the show, I'm doing my props at the same time. That is at 11 o'clock again. It's me and Mike, and it's on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel. Very easy to catch. Get in the chat and ask any questions you have. Buckets, I see you're practically laughing at this point. Before we get to our first marquee matchup, how are you today, sir? And what are we laughing about?
We're laughing about because my camera was a little off center and I've got my monitors on a monitor stand. So I just twisted my monitor, heard a loud crack, and it fell. So I'm now holding my monitor up for the entirety of the show. So if you see the sheen shaking, just know that I'm not strong enough to do this for 25 minutes.
Well, at least you haven't spilled a full glass of juice on your keyboard. So we're ahead of the game. Let's talk about our first marquee matchup, and we'll bring in really everybody, almost everybody on this one. We've got the Knicks plus 7.5 at the Celtics. This is a pretty big line. It's a 220.5 point total. Proppy, let me start with you on this one. You've been quiet, but no longer. Who you like in this one?
This is a tough one for me, Sia. I think this is a pretty efficient line. If I had to give a lean out, it would probably be with the Celtics. They've certainly had the Knicks number. I've just been so impressed with the Celtics defense, particularly the perimeter defense, adding Drew Holiday, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate annually. Derek White has evolved into one of the best perimeter defenders as well. And then we know how good the rest of the Celtics are. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. So I just think this Celtics team, they're a well-oiled machine. They're playing great basketball. I think they're going to ultimately cover in this spot, but I do think the line is pretty efficient.
All right, Larry, we think the line is pretty efficient, at least coming from Proppy's end. Do you have a lean either on the side here or the total?
I think there's room to go with the Celtics. They haven't lost at home. Porzingis is coming back. The Knicks were in Boston less than a month ago and lost by 16. And if you read what's going on in New York after they gave up 146 to the Bucks, a little bit of turmoil with Quentin Grimes, one of the starters, saying, I'm just sitting out here in the corner for an entire quarter and a half, just waiting to touch the ball. And then if I miss a shot, I get benched. I don't think Thibodeau is going to like those kind of comments. I would lay it with Boston.
Very, very interesting. Some controversy. Mike McClure, what do we add on this one? Do we like the Celtics? I know you're a totals guy. Do we like the over or the under here?
I leaned to the over. We've seen a lot of movement on it. This thing opened around 215. I would stay off at this point. The only thing I could consider getting on here would be the Celtics in the first half. Short in the game, a pretty friendly number at 3.5 in the first half here. Boston, we know how good they are defensively. Bringing Porzingis back definitely adds some depth, which is really critical early second quarter for this team. They've been one of the best first half teams offensively. New York has not. The only reason for some pause, for some concern here, for me would be just a little bit of a hangover coming off the in-season tournament and that loss. It could be a little bit of a flat spot for them. I think it's reflected in the price point, though. In a normal situation, normal conditions, I would expect the spread at home to be closer to 9.5 for them. So it's mostly priced in, but if I had to play something, it would be Celtics minus 3.5 in the first half.
I'm sorry, I couldn't even hear anything you said. I was mesmerized by your background, by the way, and probably the strategic placement of some of those helmets. Absolutely love that. Danny Brasco in the chat, everybody. He says, setting the line at over under 7.5 minutes before Buckets drops his monitor. That's a good line. Minus 110. I'm slamming the under. The juice has already shifted to minus 140 there, Danny Brasco. Buckets, that's a professional transition from Danny Brasco because our next marquee matchup, well, it's soccer. Let's fade or follow. We've got Napoli at Juventus FC plus 125 here. Fade or follow.
So there's kind of this unspoken rule in the soccer world that whenever you have two of the best teams in a respective league with two of the absolutely undeniably best offenses possible, those games, for whatever reason, always end 0-0 or possibly 1-0. You've got so many good strikers on both of these sides in this matchup. You have so many potential goal scorers. And no matter all of that, I see this winning maybe 1-0 Juventus. I like under 2.5. I like Juventus money line, possibly double chance or draw. No bet here. Napoli will be welcoming back Osimhen, but we got to remember that Napoli also has Champions League coming up on Tuesday. So it's one of those matchups to where they're going to be a bit distracted here. I lean Juventus, but this is a very, very tricky matchup.
All right. I like that. And I'm not going to go to anybody else. I'll save everybody the time. We've got Buckets on soccer, and we go right back to the NBA, everybody. Snug the Cat says 1-0. Okay, that's good. Good tip there, Snug the Cat. Kings at the Suns. This one's really interesting. And Maestro, I'm going to go to you first because we were talking before the show. There might be some injury concerns. I mean, we know some of the obvious ones, right? Bradley Beal's not going to be in this game, but this line's hanging around the Kings at Phoenix minus 1.5. But can you explain the line and maybe where you're headed in this one?
Yeah, Bradley Beal, there was some excitement that maybe he would be back for this game, that they'd get the big three together, but then we get word Durant is out with an ankle. Grayson Allen is out with a groin injury, a guy who's shooting 47% from three. Now you're talking about Devin Booker has to have a monster game, and, maybe a guy like Eric Gordon, 34 years old, has to step up. I think it's got to be the Kings all the way in this one.
Yeah, I'm really confused at this line based on the information that Maestro just gave out, Proppy, because I don't see, listen, I think the Kings are a pretty good team. They have some flat spots, certainly some games where they're flat, but a very talented team, and they get to walk into Phoenix without a lot of superstars and a couple role players. Why shouldn't I hammer the money line here, minus 125 on Sacramento?
Yeah, I'm curious as well, Sia. I think this is a good spot to back the Kings, who have really got off to a tough start. Have been playing much better basketball recently. I think De'Aaron Fox is a viable MVP candidate. He plays at such a high level right now. Obviously, we know about Sabonis as well, one of the more talented big men, not named Nikola Jokic here. And then as far as the Suns are concerned, they don't have a viable third scoring option, much less a second option with Durant on the shelf. Yusuf Nurkic is going to be probably the second leading scorer for Phoenix, most likely. Booker's still not quite 100% either. So I think this is a spot where the Kings roll, who have been playing very good basketball recently as well.
Mike, I got to kick it to you before we get to the next marquee matchup and our best bets, because I don't know if I'm walking into a trap here, but I also don't know why I'm not hammering, whether it's the minus 1.5 or the money line on Sacramento. Maybe you can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, for me, it would be Kings or nothing. It's honestly kind of interesting that Devin Booker's even going to play here if they're not going to play with Beal or Durant. I don't think they need a ton of minutes throughout this season with just Booker on the floor. I don't think the game's incredibly important to them either. The thing that's fascinating is they have 3 straight days off, and this is like game 1 of a 5-game homestand as well. So they could buy a ton of additional time by not playing him here. I think that's why we're not seeing Durant in this particular spot. So I personally think it's a game they could punt. It wouldn't even shock me if Devin Booker pops up on the injury report later in the day. So for me, it would be Kings or nothing. And just look for live in-game opportunities, because if you want to follow this game and watch this game, Devin Booker is extremely vulnerable to getting into foul trouble when he is the only superstar on the floor, which has a massive impact on live lines in game.
Yeah, this seems like a situation where you could take the Kings and hope that Devin Booker news breaks. I mean, probably a small percentage chance that he actually doesn't play, Mike, but it does make sense for them to just kind of rule him out. And by the way, I watched the last time Phoenix played a couple nights ago. He took a couple hard falls that I think he was kind of wincing getting up. Given what Mike just said, I don't know why you play him in what looks like a loss, but then again, the line's pretty tight here. I definitely like Sacramento here, particularly on the money line. All right, one more game. You mentioned punting, Mike, professional transition. We've got one college football game. I just want to get your thoughts real quick because these are always interesting games, Army-Navy, for various reasons, but also because of the totals. We see these totals like always in the high 20s. Maybe it touches 30. We've got Army favored by 2.5. This is a Saturday game, by the way, and we've got an over-under of 27.5. Any lean either way here?
I lean to the Navy side just slightly, and it's really just getting any amount of points here. I think this game is going to be incredibly competitive, as evident by the point spread and the basically historically low total. It looks like an Iowa game. You're going to see a lot of running the football here in this one. I'm not betting it, but if I had to bet something, it would be Navy with the points, and believe it or not, still an early lean on the under that very low number.
Hilarious under. We've got a lot of bowl games that have unders. Any Iowa game is going to have a low under, but some of these unders, not just in the NFL last night, we've got some college football teams that just do not move the ball down the field. Speaking of bowl games, speaking of Army-Navy, speaking of these basketball games that we've already talked about, where do you want to place these bets? Let's talk about it. BetMGM, really interesting 33% same game parlay boost that everybody should know about. Where are you going to place the bets? Where are you going to place the same game parlays? It's BetMGM. And today you can take one of these NBA sides and make them a place of your own same game parlay with an NBA same game parlay boost token from BetMGM. Use your SGP boost token for any NBA matchup and score 33% extra winnings if your bet wins. Log in to view details and terms and conditions. That is a really, really cool SGP boost token. 33%, nothing to scoff at there. That is really impressive. Let's talk about our best bets. Let's finally get into our best bets. But before we do that, let's hear one quick message from our partners.
On the next NFL Monday QB, with only a month left on the regular season calendar, the Week 14 slate is filled with divisional rivalries. Go under center on the only NFL show all about quarterbacks. Monday on CBS Sports Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. It's time for our best bets. And Buckets, I got to ask you, are your forearms burnt out? Are you doing triceps right now, trying to hold things up, trying to piece things together? Because you got a couple soccer bets to give out, and I don't know how you're going to do it.
Yeah, every time we go away for a one shot on someone else, I'm kind of switching arms and stretching a bit. So I think it's going to get a little bit shaky here at the end. But Sia, if it's all right with you, I've got a couple really good soccer picks for everyone here this afternoon.
It's all right with us.
All right, let's make this happen then. This afternoon, we have a couple, again, of tricky matchups, but I'm going with the dog here, #Freya, because when I'm looking at the German Bundesliga and I see a Hoffenheim team playing at home who's out of form, playing Bochum on the road who is in form, the lines don't really make sense to me. Hoffenheim is this bizarre German Bundesliga club that when they play on the road, they play like a 2009 Barcelona club. For whatever reason, Hoffenheim on the road is so deadly. But when they play at home, they're just the opposite. They're not existent anymore. They have only won a single match in their last 5. Meanwhile, Bochum have not lost in 5 of their last 5 matches. Bochum is drawing good teams. They're beating good teams. Bochum is finally finding their form here. So when I look at Hoffenheim as the heavy favorites, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I'm going with VfL Bochum DC or double chance, which means if Bochum wins the match or if Bochum draws the match, this ticket cashes. And again, this is at plus odds. That's at plus 115 for a team that has not lost in their last 5. And then we're going from Germany to Belgium. And I already talked about in Juventus Napoli. Sometimes when you get these two really, really high caliber teams, it leads to a bit of a disappointing matchup here. But when you have Kortrijk playing Westerlo in Belgium, you got to believe there's going to be goals because we have the 2 bottom of the table clubs. My forearms are dying. Playing each other this afternoon, and I love over 2.5 goals here at minus 130. It is a little bit of juice, but these are 2 teams that will be absolutely desperate for any amount of points for any amount of goals and for anything to help their relegation battles. This is a match that could have 5 or 6 goals, so I have no problem playing that juice at -130.
All right, absolutely love it. Are you okay? Do you need to put the monitor down? Do we need to dismiss you so you can rest your arms? Or you're gonna hang in there?
No, not yet. I think it's good. It'll be a good pre-pump for the gym,
I absolutely love that. All right, well, let's get to my pick here too, and it actually will kind of filter into a lot of the scheduling stuff. We have such a packed weekend. What I decided to do, and I do like Sacramento money line. I might put that in on SportsLine. Forgive me for not doing it yet. We're just kind of getting that injury news, but I've got a prop that I put into SportsLine just an hour ago. Is Alexander Mattison over 50.5 rushing yards at -115. Kind of an obscure player to have. I mean, he's a starting running back to have an over on given how he's performed this season. But before I get into the nuts and bolts of that play, I do just want to mention we've got the prop show at 4:00, but don't forget we have the Sunday kickoff show at noon on Sunday. That's still on the schedule, and of course the Sunday night football stream at 7:30 Sunday night. So Sunday is just as packed as ever. And frankly, I have 7 or 8 picks that I already like that I'm kind of filtering through that I'm going to put on SportsLine, but I'm definitely going to be talking about on that NFL kickoff show. So please stay tuned for all of the programming. 4:00 today, Sunday at 12, and then Sunday at 7:30. I'll be quick on Alexander Mattison. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry last game out before the bye. He only had 10 carries. That was kind of game script dependent. What was really interesting about that game, though, was Ty Chandler never emerged as sort of the 1B. He is clearly the backup to Alexander Mattison. And frankly, 5.2 yards a carry, that was not a mirage. He actually looked spry. He was getting to the holes. If you watch the game, he was really looking pretty good. And now he gets a Vegas team that does not defend the rush very well at all. They're bottom 10 defending the rush. With Joshua Dobbs turning the ball over so much, I really think they're going to lean on the running game. The projected rushing attempt total for Alexander Mattison is 13.5. I lean the over there, but the important thing about that rush attempt total is that if he gets 14 or 13 rush attempts, I do think against this Raiders defense, he's going to eclipse 50.5 rushing yards. So this is one of many props I'm going to put into SportsLine today and through the weekend, but it's certainly one that I like quite a bit. And I just don't think a lot of people are going to be on Alexander Mattison for good reason, but I think this is the week perhaps to take him. All right. That's my pick. Again, it's for Sunday. Don't forget about all our programming. We'll flash the schedule at the end of the show. But Proppy, you've got a couple of picks for us, and you're going to be on that prop show later today. But let's talk about the here and now. What's your pick?
Yeah, I've got a pair of NBA props. We've got a beautiful 13-game slate tonight in the association, starting with Tobias Harris. We're going to go over 23.5 combined points, rebounds, and assists. Love this spot for Tobias Harris playing against the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks are one of my favorite teams to target, specifically if I'm looking for overs. Reason being, they play at one of the fastest paces in the NBA, and they also are not good defensively. They rank top 10 in possessions per game and bottom 10 in defensive efficiency. They have been especially generous to opposing forwards as well, especially since Jalen Johnson ended up with a wrist injury. So we're seeing just backups playing, starting for the Hawks. I really think this sets up Tobias Harris to have a nice, well-rounded game, stuff the stat sheet, contribute points, rebounds, and assists. And then another team I love targeting, we targeted just a few days ago when we were on Joel Embiid. He dropped the 50 bomb for us. We're going to another center against the Washington Wizards. That's Nicholas Claxton, over 21.5 combined points and rebounds. This Wizards team is the worst team in the NBA. I think it'll be a miracle if they end up winning 15 games this season. They're second to last in defensive efficiency, and they're second in pace of play. They play absolutely no defense, and they push the ball up the court, which just leads to a lot of additional possessions and opportunities. Nick Claxton is settling in, had the really nice year last season, had an injury to start this season, but looks to be firmly entrenched at around 28 to 32 minutes tonight. I think he can get there in 3 quarters, doesn't even need to play in the 4th quarter, which he hopefully will if this game is in fact competitive. But give me Nick Claxton over 21.5 points and rebounds.
Yeah, you all probably know, a lot of you know that I co-host a show at Capital One Arena where the Wizards play. So it's not right for me to disparage a team that sort of plays in my house, if you will. All I'll say is, geez, I really do love those picks, probably.
I do want to mention real quick, Sia, if you have yet to watch the Wizards, it is a treat to watch Jordan Poole. And I'm not saying because he's playing great basketball, just some of his decision-making on the court is highly entertaining.
I have no comment at this time. Okay. Let's before we get to Mike McClure and the Maestro, we gotta hear one more message from our partners.
A game of honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA. Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
So, Mikey, I teased it earlier. You love totals, whether it's the NBA or college football or college basketball. And we don't have like a great college basketball slate today. We have kind of more obscure teams that are not people are not necessarily familiar with. But that's not bad for you, right? Because the markets are going to be softer for those games typically. And you have, or at least you can expound on that if you want, but you have a total in the Duquesne-St. Peter's game. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, the Duquesne-St. Peter's game, honestly, that's kind of the games that we target the most in college basketball. But you're right, it is a very slow slate today and really all of this week, as it's essentially finals week across the country of college basketball. But I have a total here. And if you want to bet these totals with me, you definitely want to subscribe to SportsLine, turn the notifications on, because I do post all of these the night before. And we do see a ton of market movement on the totals. They are very fragile. They move very quickly. So I played this last night over 128.5 minus 115. It is up to 130.5 right now. That is the stopping point to where I would want to play it. I don't want to get to 131 or above if you don't have to. I do make the number, though, 135 in the simulation. So what we have here, St. Peter's, not a great basketball team. They play with very little pace. Duquesne is a much better team, should easily win this game. That is going to force St. Peter's to speed up just enough here to get us over this total. One thing St. Peter's does well is they shoot free throws very well. They're one of the better free throw shooting teams in college basketball, but they have trouble not fouling. They're going to put Duquesne on the line. Duquesne has superior athletes across the board. They're going to score at will. They're going to get to the foul line. I think we see this one go over the total here. I think, again, should be in the mid 130s is where it should land. So get it in now. I only expect it to go up.
All right. Love that play. Usually when you give out a play, you really have to rush to put the play in. So when Mike says put that play in, he actually really means it. Like put that play in as soon as possible. All right, Maestro, we've kept you quiet way too long, if I'm being honest. And you have a couple of picks here, one of which, we mentioned the prop show at 4:00 today. I think this one might actually be on that prop show. It's one that I like as well. And I'm going to be betting it. So I love it. And then you've got a college basketball play too. What are your two picks?
Starting tonight in college hoops, we have a big game in Michigan tonight. I'm teasing a little bit because it's Eastern Michigan hosting Oakland, two Detroit area schools. And Eastern Michigan getting 5.5 very attractive to me because, number one, they're undefeated at home. They've already beaten two schools from the horizon, but they have a guy named Tyson Acuff who's 6th in the nation in scoring. 27 points per game over his last 3. He's from Detroit. He went to Duquesne, played for Duquesne, now came home and is absolutely lighting it up inside, outside, mid-range. This kid is very smooth and fun to watch. These two teams played a 92-90 game last year. That was at Oakland. I think this one comes down to the wire again. I'm taking the points with the Eagles. And then a prop that I believe is going to move, especially if the weather continues to look decent in Chicago. We're seeing 15-mile-per-hour winds, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. We're seeing no precipitation, and we're seeing temperatures around 40 degrees. So DJ Moore, whenever he has Justin Fields in for a full game, he has been going off. He actually gets 45% of the team's receiving yardage. There's no receiver in football dominating the ball the way DJ Moore does. And this week, DJ Moore said he wasn't aware that Justin Fields might be gone after this season. He was shocked to hear it, and he wants Justin Fields to stay. He is going to continue to ball out with Justin Fields. I love this play over 67.5. The last 4 times Justin Fields has played a full game, DJ Moore has shattered this, including against the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. He had about, I think, 96 yards against the Lions last time out. And this Lions defense, especially against the pass, it just hasn't been very good. And even Justin Fields, if you think he's an average quarterback, he can still exploit this Detroit defense. In fact, from a DFS standpoint, I like the stack, Maestro, and in something just in about a half an hour, Mike McClure and I are going to talk about. I like the stack of Fields to DJ Moore quite a bit because that concentration of targets, it's really all on DJ Moore, a little bit of Cole Kmet, maybe a little bit of some of those secondary guys like Darnell Mooney. Okay, great picks. And let's take a look at all of the picks right now. Let's take a look at the Recap screen from our picks today. We've got Bochum double chance plus 115. Korczyk, Westerlo over 2.5. Prop has got Nick Claxton over 21.5 points and rebounds. Tobias Harris over 23.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I've got Alexander Madison over 50.5 rushing yards. That's one of many plays I'm going to have this weekend, both in the sides market and the prop market. Duquesne St. Peter's over is Mike McClure's pick, over 128.5. And the Maestro's got Eastern Michigan plus 5.5 and DJ Moore over 67.5 receiving yards. And Jake, if you have it, can we put up the schedule? And if you don't have it, I'll just say it verbally. But our new weekly schedule. Maybe you want to take a screenshot of this on your phone or on your iPad or wherever you're watching this programming. Again, I'm not going to read all of this programming out, but I do want to emphasize on Sunday specifically, it's all the same shows. We've got the 12 p.m. NFL Sunday kickoff show and the 7:30 Sunday night football live pregame. That's a huge game Sunday night. And that kickoff show, it doesn't just go through each game. It goes through all of our picks and some of our DFS picks that we like. If you're into that, we run through every game really quickly. It's a really, really good listen. And you guys can jump in the chat and ask any question you want during that NFL Sunday kickoff show on the Early Edge. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, Chip Patterson will be back next Friday for Big Pick Energy. It's going to be a ton of energy. Hopefully today was a ton of energy. I hope you have a ton of energy on this Friday and through the weekend. For Buckets, who is loosening up his arms as we speak, for the Maestro, for Mike McClure, for Propstarz, and for Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s and 9s and 10s. I am the counselor, and we rest our case.